Good afternoon and good morning. Welcome back to the virtual VETS'20 webinar series. Today is part 13 of our 17-part webinar series hosted by the National Veteran Small Business Coalition. I'm Earl Morgan, the NVSBC Program Director, and to our new attendees, thank you for joining us today. Again, we have to thank our 8 sponsors who made this webinar series possible. The NVSBC will be holding its annual Champions of Veteran Enterprise virtual awards ceremony on Thursday, November 5th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This ceremony recognizes both federal agencies and large business prime contractors who exceeded the 3% goal for service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses and exceeded the 8% in awards to veteran small businesses. Please visit the NVSBC website and click on the calendar events to register for this event. And of course, this award ceremony is free to all attendees. I am pleased to announce that VETS'21 will be held in Orlando, Florida from November 2nd to the 4th, 2021. We just signed a 4-year deal with the DoubleTree Hilton, which is their premier hotel destination. VETS'21 will be on its off year since we're hoping that the vaccine for COVID-19 will be available in early 2021. We will then return to our mid-May conference dates for VETS'22 to VETS'24. Please stay tuned for more information on VETS'21 in the upcoming months on our NVSBC website. Okay, today's webinar is 1 hour. If you have any questions during this webinar, please type it in the text box on your screen. We'll try to get to all the questions on this webinar, and if by chance you missed your question or do not have time to answer it, we'll get the answers to you and post it on our virtual VETS'20 replay webpage. Now I'd like to introduce our Executive Director for the National Veteran Small Business Coalition, Mr. Scott Jensen.
Thanks, Earl. Appreciate it. Hello, everyone out there. It's great to have you here again with us today. We appreciate you coming on board, and we know that you're going to find today as equally interesting and important as any of the past webinars that you've participated in, and encourage you to stay engaged with us through the rest of October and into November as we continue the VETS'20 webinar series. Today, we're joined by James Sweeney. Jim is the Chief Strategic Communications Officer for the Air Force's Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Technology Transfer Program. Jim has a breadth of both U.S. Air Force and industry experience. He's held multiple positions to include Program Manager for the Air Force's SBIR Commercialization Readiness Program, F-119 Engine Flight Test for the F-22, F-22 Pilot Training, International Flight Simulator programs for the Turkish, Israeli, and Egyptian Air Forces, and he began his government career as a contract negotiator for the F-16 program. His experience in commercial industry is equally impressive, which includes program management with the Royal Saudi Air Force Airborne Rangeless Training System, out at Nellis at their Air Combat Training Systems, with B-52 Airborne Infrared Camera retrofits, and the list goes on and on. We're truly blessed to have Jim with us today. Jim has a bachelor's degree in international marketing and business and a master's degree in business administration. I think we'll all appreciate that Jim grew up in a small business family and readily understands and appreciates the full spectrum of challenges and rewards that the small business community faces. And on a side note, Jim successfully constructed and flies an FAA-approved RV-6A experimental airplane. So he's got a lot behind him here. And Jim, it's a real pleasure to have you with us today, and I will turn the floor over to you.
Yes, and Scott and Earl, thank you so much for inviting me today. And for all those that are participating, thanks for taking time out to participate. We're on the Eastern time zone, and I know we're all across the country. It's really one of the highlights of what I do now is the opportunity to talk to the small businesses. And out of that collection is we have a very large veteran-owned company, the small businesses. And I think that our program, the Small Business Innovation Research Program, we've actually had quite a few participate. And I think from what we've seen and been able to record, quite a few of them have actually done very well. Little background, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the SBIR program. Congress started this program in 1982, and the purpose was a lot of the major defense contractors were getting all the money, and the small businesses were scrambling, trying to figure out, well, how do we get some of that so we can grow into a large business? And what we were finding was that, and historically, in excess of 80% of all employment within the United States, it's the small businesses. It's the realm that you operate in. And I think that right now, even despite the COVID-19 pandemic situation, small businesses are a big deal. In fact, it's even on the political agenda for what we're seeing on TV. The small businesses do matter. So having you as a group that I get to chat with, and the Air Force, in fact, all of the government agencies that participate. For instance, that would be the Air Force, Navy, DARPA, NASA, Department of Energy, Science Foundation, Institute of Health, etc., etc. We're all very interested in the small businesses, and what I'm going to walk you through today is what the Air Force is doing to make sure that we have the dialogue with the small businesses and give you the opportunity to solve some of the problems that we've got. Scott, thanks for your kind words on my background. As stated, I'm the Chief Strategic Communications Officer, which means my job is to basically broadcast what it is the Air Force is looking to do, and to assure that the folks out there on the other side of the fence are able to understand and get an opportunity to participate. And so with that in mind, let me just kind of walk you through what we've got. There is a big giant, if you're familiar with the SBIR program, one of the largest concerns or challenges that all of us face, we, the Air Force, face it as well, because if we're not getting the small businesses, we're not getting, at times, we're not getting the technologies and the IP that you bring, all the capabilities that you've got. If we're not talking with you, we're missing a huge opportunity. If you're familiar with the SBIR program, you've heard of the term Valley of Death. Basically what that means is there's nobody that advocates what you're doing. There's nobody interested in your technology, and more importantly, you're having trouble paying your bills because everybody ran out of money. So we're trying to find ways around that, and we've readdressed our program to identify that and come up with some options and alternatives so that we can make that happen. We seriously consider the fact that if we can get beyond this Valley of Death situation, that has become our, excuse the expression, the North Star, and it's what keeps us motivated. Bottom line, we're asking you to help us so we can help you. You'll see the synergy and everything that we do. Next chart, please. For those that are familiar with the Air Force SBIR program, or even working with some of the other agencies in their SBIR program, you know, they had a particular way of working that program, and we determined early on that we were not quite getting the return on investment for all of the invested money that we provided. We were finding that the companies that ended up taking the ball and running with it and becoming very successful, there were not as many as we hoped and need to have that happen to. So we had to change our basic approach to the whole program. And one of the biggest things and one of the largest complaints that I'm sure all of you have heard is it took forever. You were, for instance, you were informed, hey, congratulations, you just won an SBIR contract. And then it would take anywhere from 9 to 18 to 24 months before you saw a penny of it. Now, the way that we view the program is we take that very seriously. Our job is not to do any harm to the small businesses. So if we said, hey, congratulations, you got your contract, then it becomes incumbent upon us to get the contract signed and to get you properly funded so that you can get to work and deliver the technology that you've been working on. A point of clarity, the Air Force does contracts. Some of the other agencies does grant, or they do grants. So we do a contract, which means we're expecting something out the back end. Something, the fruits of your labor, we're hoping to be able to get that to the warfighter so that we can actually have the ability to show up on that day with a better technology and better capability that protects our sons and daughters as they're out there doing the bidding for our country. So we need to get this done faster, and so we've been looking at that. Contracting, for instance, typically it's painful and it's kind of embarrassing to state, but oftentimes, like I said, it takes 9, 18, 24 months. Well, we looked at that. We found out what, we tried to discover what could we do to shorten the lead time. Well, we found a way, and we've been able to reduce those times to 60 to 90 days. And that's a big deal because that allows time for you to propose, us to evaluate the proposal, do the negotiations, and then put ink to paper stating, hey, congratulations, you've won the contract. And we ran a thing called a pitch day, and I'll describe that a little bit downrange here, but we had a pitch day in New York City, Times Square of all places. And we did that last year. And we were actually able to use a government credit card, and I'm getting ahead of myself just a slight bit, but we were able to have each of the awardees, when they found a signal for their cell phone, they were able to check their bank account, and there was money in their bank account. It happened that fast. You're familiar with the government contract, and it's usually just piles and piles of boilerplate, lots of pages, lots of just incredibly difficult to read paragraphs. We actually came up with a one-page front and back contract, and that was approved by the general down in San Antonio in charge of contracts. He advocated that, and we were actually able to put that together. So basically what I'm trying to tell you is we've simplified the process, we've reduced the time, and we've been able to find a way to get you funded much faster. So next chart, please. For those that are unfamiliar with the SBIR program, I'm going to briefly walk you through this. And for those that are familiar with the SBIR program, I'll walk you through and explain a little bit of what's changed. Use the top on this particular chart under the standard topics. You see a phase 0 to phase 3. Phase 0, this is some of the hardest work that you'll have to do. This is where you've got an idea. You have an idea who the customer is. You've actually reached out to see if the customer might even be interested in that particular technology. And this is where you plan how you're going to achieve your phase 3. And I'll explain all that in a few minutes. So you get the confirmation that they're interested. So then you go to your phase 1. Now this is your concept development. I refer to this oftentimes as it's the napkin sketch. This is you'll be awarded your contract and you'll start working on your phase 1. And this is where you're working with your customer. You're finding out exactly what he's looking for and what his expectations are. And as you all know, everybody's job is to manage the other's expectations. And this is where you as a small business get to do that. And that typically is a 6 to 9 month effort. And with the old style of doing SBIR, and I'll go through the new in just a moment. So let's just say it's a 6 to 9 month. At the end, you provide a report on how everything went, and you provide that to your customer. So the customer reads that, and you've had great conversation, you've made great progress, and then he's the one that says, hey, small business, I am interested in having you continue the development, and let's see if we can get you to submit a proposal so you can receive a phase 2. Now the phase 2, this is where you actually generate a test article. This is where you're actually fabricating the initial product. Oftentimes you've already got that, and that's okay too. But what we've experienced on average is this is where a lot of the companies come up with something, a test article that they can put in front of their customer. They can run through the test cells. They can put it through its paces to verify that it does what it does. Now, this is typically a anywhere from 1 to 2 year program, and they just increased that to up to 3 years, so 36 months. Now, what I would like to do is kind of put this thought in your mind is, I'm with the Air Force, whole career here, and what I've noticed is the longer you take to finish your technology, your champion or your chief advocate, this would be your sponsor, your Air Force customer, they either get promoted, they retire, or they pass away. And what happens is you lose your champion, your person that's most interested in you being successful, and the new person that replaces him, oftentimes you probably won't make the cut because it's not in their interest. So what I'm foot stomping here is, if you have the ability to accelerate your development work, I highly encourage you to do so. The contracts are fixed price, and I can assure you, if you were to get the work done as soon as you can, so that you're able to demonstrate that it works A-OK, just the way you intended and the customer is expecting, I'm not going to come back and say, hey, you got it done early, so give me the money back. It's your money. But then you went through, you took all the risk, you're making all this happen. So if you can get it done sooner, I highly encourage you to do that. Now you see that bar that says phase 3. Congress put it together and said it's a phase 3. What we review it as, it's where you commercialize your product. This is where you make your money. And in my humble opinion, this is the gold ring for you participating in the SBIR program. This is where you're going to make your money, lots of money. And as far as I'm concerned, I would like to see you make just a whole lot of money, because, well, you'll pay more taxes, you'll hire more people, you'll have a bigger building, and you'll be able to come up with even better technology that we can use down the road. Now, the caveat here is there is no SBIR funding that we provide. What that means is, for phase 1 and phase 2, we provided SBIR funding, SBIR money. For the phase 3, this is where your customer ponies up to write a check, or could be Lockheed, could be Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, Ford Motor Company, Procter & Gamble. Somebody's buying your product and you're selling your product. You're making the money, and that's really where you want to be. So when you hear phase 3, It's basically the commercialization. It's where you get a chance to sell your product and harvest the fruits of all the effort that you put into it. And so you'll see phase 3, you'll hear a whole lot about that. And it says, if you look at the bandwidth, if you use a normal SBIR program, it could take 5 to 7 years to complete through your phase 2. And recall, I said if you can get it done sooner, I highly encourage you. So I recommend that you do that and always keep it there. So now let's go down below. Remember, I told you that our program's changed, and apologize for spending so much time on the chart, but we have a thing called the phase 0, and that's still the same. That's where you're planning where you're going to go. You've got the idea and you're going to bring it forward. Phase 1, you're doing the work, and then your phase 2, you've actually tested and you're making something happen. Now on both charts, above and below, what you'll see is the phase 3. You can actually go from a phase 1 to a phase 3 immediately. If your product's mature enough and you've got the ability to produce it and you've got a customer that is sitting at the edge of their seat with their checkbook, you can immediately go to the phase 3. And I also would like to state, because you received a phase 1, or if you went directly to a phase 2, you have completely satisfied the congressional statute, which means you have competed. This is a competition to get those awards. And because you received the award, that means anybody in the government, Army, Navy, Air Force, DARPA, NASA, all of those, they can reach out and go sole source to you. And that's the best place you want to be, because they will go out and the contracting officers will write a contract as opposed to having to go through the source selection process. That's a huge deal. And this is intended by Congress, so consider that. So what we've done, and look at the little boxes to the right there. There's an organization called Afworks. They're fairly new. They've been with us for just short of 2 years now. And through them, we've been able to come up with the new ideas. Shorten the lead times for putting out the solicitation, receiving the proposals, doing the analysis, getting it on contract award. And then we've also used different vehicles. For instance, you've got the broad area announcements, and this is where a lot of you go out to find out what we're looking for. And you're looking for, you know, hey, maybe there's an interest, maybe there's something that I can do that the Air Force would be interested in. We've also taken another look at the CSO, that's your commercial solutions. If you've got something in a commercial aspect that could potentially be put together so that it satisfies what the warfighter is looking for, we're on board with that. We're looking for you to demonstrate that it works, and we're looking for the Air Force to say, hey, that's a great idea. Now, one of the things below that is the credit card. That was the first time we've ever done that. Usually, you know, in the office, you could buy reams of paper, pencils, and all that stuff using a government credit card. But this is the first time we used it successfully to actually get contracts awarded. And during that event up in New York City, we were in the process of spending several millions of dollars. And after about 15 minutes, the bank called and said, we're gonna have to put a, you know, someone in the Air Force is spending Air Force money. We had to have the generals give a couple phone calls to the bank saying it's good. So it was brand new and it worked really, really great. We are looking for the one-page contracts. You'll find that refreshing. Our perspective is we want you to work on the technology, not to struggle through all the hieroglyphics that comes in a contract set of paperwork. Next chart, please. This is a little more of the same of what we just discussed about, but we've got several different organizations working. We've got Afworks, we've got the Air Force SBIR STTR Program Management Office Center of Excellence, and that's the group that I particularly work with at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Dayton, Ohio. And as a marketing spec there, by the way, the Air Force Museum is one of the most incredible in the entire world. Your tax money pays for it, so if you ever navigate and find your way to Dayton, Ohio, by all means, go through the museum. And you're going to need more than 3 hours. It's amazing. So I live there and I still go through it. So highly recommend that. You've got Afworks, you've got Apex. We're working with the universities. We're trying to work with as many diverse organizations as we can. We're looking for them to assist. We're looking to connect them with you, the small businesses. We're trying to get as much synergy as we can, and depending on what your technology and what you're interested in doing, quite often we do have the connections that can set you into motion with them. And all of these organizations, they do have funding that covers a lot of the R&D work that we're doing. So what we're looking for is you'll have to give us a call and see what we can do. There's a lot of things that goes on, and oftentimes, you know how it is, there's so much that it just doesn't get published, and maybe we can help you through that. And as I mentioned at the very onset, we're looking for the return on investment. Every year we have to report to Congress, and their question is, hey, I gave you this bucket of money. What'd you do with it? And we have to report every year to them. And I guess our numbers have been going up, and I'll show that in some subsequent charts. But they've increased our budget, which is good. And with every budget increase that goes on, the expectations go accordingly. So we're working with you, having you work with us, and the intent is to get the right numbers so that we can provide the right technologies to our warfighters. Okay, next chart, please. A lot of folks are going to say, well, gosh, I don't know what the Air Force is looking for. Well, this is what we did last year in 2019. And for 2020, this particular wheel will change a little bit. Some of the stuff we've been doing is a little different than what we did in the past, but this gives you a general oversight as to what we're looking for. And there's something that you do that fits into this wheel that says that's what we're looking for. Let's have the dialogue. Let's have you guys chat with us. Now you'll notice that on top it says the SBIR STTR topics. And as I mentioned, the BAA is the broad area announcement, and the 19.1, we have 3 solicitations every year. And we intentionally did that because up until just a couple of years ago, we would only do 1 a year. And if you didn't make it, well, sorry, you didn't make it. But what we've done is by going to 3 separate solicitations, it gives you more opportunities to see what we've got, and it also brings a more diverse set of requirements that we can work with. And so we have 19.1, we got 19A, B, or C, and the A, B, and C, that's what the Navy does, but just wanted to put that in there anyway. But we do the 19.1.2.3, and for this year we've done the 20.1, 20.2, 20.3. Apologize for all the math and all the way it's written, but that's how we run our program. And you would be looking to say, well, I'm interested in something that showed up during a 20.2, for instance. And I think on Wednesday this week, it's the end of fiscal 2020. And then we're going into fiscal 2021. And so it would be 21.1, 21.2, 21.3. So I'll give you, at the very end, there's a link that lets you keep tabs on where we're at with all this. And it allows you to go in and kind of search and see if there's something that you're interested in, and allow you to propose accordingly. Next chart, please. Like I said, we started a couple years ago, and I'll define a couple of these things here. What we used to do, and we're still doing some of these today, we have a group of folks that work in the Tech Warrior Connect and the Tech Warrior ConOps. What this is where we invite the small businesses to meet up with the operators. This is your frontline military folks. That includes the Army, the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force. It could be the security police. It could be the medical folks in the field. It could be, I mean, it's just really broadband. And if you can kind of take a look at the numbers of what we awarded, for instance, we did 9 phase 1 awards for a total of $580,000. If you can just keep that in mind, and I believe you'll get a copy of these charts. The next chart will show you what we did that was different. As part of the communications group, we had to find a way that was a little more social media. So we went out to Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Twitter impressions, and quite a few of the other ways of broadcasting, letting everybody know, hey, the Air Force is out here, the Air Force is interested, and the Air Force would really like to have you see if that's something that would be of interest to you. And my team in the communications group, we're putting reports together, we're recording the success stories, and I'll get more on that a little bit later, but that's really exciting for the small guys. We used to have technical interchange meetings. This is where we met with the major defense contractors. What keeps them up at night? And we would bring in small businesses and have those small businesses do one-on-one meetings with the major defense contractors. And the purpose of that was to get this major defense guys to write a check for the small guys to make them partners so that that development can get put together. Keep in mind, a good chance you're not going to put an engine on a KC-46 or the B-21 or something like that, but you're probably going to have a process that fits on an engine that goes on to one of those platforms. And that's where we're trying to get the small guys doing. Get you involved, and we're trying to open as many doors as we can. We still do quite a few outreach events. This is where we look to, for instance, today, talking with you folks. Hopefully we'll hear back from you, and I can have my my team talk with you, kind of walk you through where we're at, what you need to do, and see if there's any way that we can get you to participate with us. Next chart, please. Now, this is what we did last year. Now, remember the previous chart, we had just a handful of phase 1s, and we had 580,000. We were doing things a whole lot smarter. We were spending more money, and the warfighter was actually getting a lot of the products. Let's take the Tech Warrior, for instance. What was really masterful about that is this is one of the few times that you actually get an opportunity without having to spend tons of money to have somebody tell you whether your baby's ugly or not, or if it's just amazing and they can't wait to buy it. The warfighters, they'll look you in the eye and you will know immediately. In fact, I'm talking to a veterans group, so you know what I'm talking about. This is where they'll tell you that, you know, if we had a little lighter weight set of batteries or something, or that sensor that fits on our battle rattle, if it could be a little less conspicuous, or the antenna for the radio. You know, we're a target if we're wearing a huge antenna. So is there something else you can do? We've had all of those. We've even had the medical group state that because of this event, they were able to do operating procedures that they would have to go back to med school to get. And they were able to get ideas more effective on the spot during a couple of our events. It's incredibly broadband. Now, I mentioned success stories. So congratulations, you won a SBIR contract. You went through either your phase 1 or you went direct to phase 2. You were able to get it through the testing, and you proved that your technology really stepped up and it was going to provide something new and innovative to the warfighter. And they're buying it. Somebody's buying it. Boeing's buying it. Procter & Gamble's buying it. And now you're able to pay the bills to keep the lights on, a roof over your employees' heads, and keep them employed. And then what we do in the comm team, we actually have a videographer group. We do writing, we do write-ups. And what we found is Congress is easily bored, and they don't want to read the, you know, volumes the size of the New York City phone book. So we put videos together. And we did 42 last year. Excuse me. And what we've done is we're turning out a new video about every 10 days. And some of these companies are spectacular. And you get a copy, you get to use it for your marketing. It's all been PA approved. Congress gets a copy. And if you go to the Pentagon, you'll actually see a lot of these videos on the monitors around the Pentagon. We've even provided a couple to the Navy. And we work great with the Navy. Oftentimes, if we don't have the technology, I'm deviating for a moment, if we don't have the technology needs, or it's not going in the right direction, we've traded topics, SBIR topics with the Navy, DARPA, NASA, all those others, and we've been able to bring your capabilities up in front of them and maybe even just hand it off to them, so that the customer that you're working with is the one that's most excited and the most zealous about getting you moving forward. Really, the intent of the last two charts was we're making huge improvements to what we've ever done before. We are starting to record our return on investment, and our reports up to Congress are looking better and better. It's really exciting. And for us Air Force types, it's really great being on that side of the pen, putting this information together, as opposed to, you know, what are you doing with all my money? Well, we're demonstrating that. But we're only doing that because all of the work that the small businesses have done. That's how big a deal it is for us. Next chart, please. On this particular chart, what I wanted to show was just to give you an idea on the amount of awards we've made. And if you look at it for all of the topics, you know, we've had like 1,200 awards that were made for phase 1s. That's impressive. And we received a whole lot, but remember, we're doing about 25–30% award ratio, and that is a little bit higher than what we've ever done before. So we're finding ways, and you're showing up with ways. Now you see the SBIR and you see the STTR, just for really keeping it simple. The SBIR, those contracts, that's where you're working with the scientists, you're working with maybe the major defense contractors, you're working with somebody within the Air Force. Your STTRs, these are contracts that you're working with the university. And there are certain percentages of how much work the university does, how much work you do, and the small business is challenged to do a certain percentage of the work, and which means that you get paid accordingly. Most often when you're working with a SBIR, all of the money goes to you. If you're working STTR, typically you have to share that with the university. The Air Force hasn't been, just looking at the numbers here, you'll see that the Air Force hasn't really knocked it out of the park with STTRs, but those numbers are changing, and I think 2020 you'll see a larger difference with STTRs, but the primary focus has always been with the SBIR program. Next chart, please. Now I already pre-discussed a little bit of the Tech Warrior, but what we really intended to do was we wanted to find a way to accelerate this technology and get in front of war fighters. And what we're finding is that oftentimes the sales of the product and the technology comes from word of mouth. And so you get folks coming from a squadron or you know, some other group in the military. They say, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." You get the National Guard. They'll bring helicopters in to this event. They'll do medevacs. They'll do all kinds of sorts of things, and they're looking for the new technologies. For instance, they had one that said the commander is able to now control and to monitor whether his troops are dehydrating in the blistering hot of day, or if they're freezing, by some of the sensors that we've had the small businesses show up with. And a lot of the organizations have bought those, and they've spent a lot of their own operational funding for that. I think what I'm really trying to say in between the lines is there's a lot that you do that if we could just get it socialized in front of the right people, oftentimes it'll take off and you'll be able to start making the living that you've gotten business to do in the first place. Without going into all the numbers for comparison, our numbers have improved a whole lot, and it's because we made a dedicated effort that this is something that was really important. And the Air Force Tech Warrior program, it has certain inputs from the Air Force Research Lab and the operators, special ops, all those folks. They've all participated, and we're getting a great turnout. In fact, we've got a cyber event next week that we'll be supporting up at Rome Air Force Base in New York. And then we've got some medical ops, and we've got several others coming, and we've increased the tempo of these events. And I know it's kind of interesting, but we're actually doing some of the medical ops virtual. So that in itself is kind of a big deal. This whole virtual thing, by the way, it's new for all of us, and it's actually working. Personally, I'm looking forward to when we get the proper serums coming through and all of that, so we can get back into the one-on-one in-person events. But until then, this works great. And Earl's put on a great show, so and a great program. So this is working real well. Next chart, please. Okay, pitch days. I mentioned that earlier. And to define what that is, up to this point, we've had a lot of folks, they've submitted proposals, they've submitted white papers, and somebody has to sit down at a desk with their green visor on their head, and somebody makes a decision. Well, on the pitch day, what we've done is you submit a white paper with just a couple pages, and this is an organization. It could be a base, it could be the special ops guys, it could be the fighter bomber group, it could be anybody in the Air Force that is interested in your particular product, and you'll submit white papers. They've got tech evals that they do, and they'll say, hey, this company, I would like to talk to them. And remember, it's all competitive. So they'll bring in a couple companies, and it's a pitch day. So you'll be notified in advance. You'll be at a particular location. Take the inaugural pitch day, for instance, in New York City. We brought in 50 some odd companies, and a majority of them went home with checks in the bank. But you stood in front of a panel of Air Force people that were interested in that technology, and you walked them through what your technology does, the state of your technology, how mature it is, when you'd be able to go to manufacturing, and you went through price points. You did all the business kinds of things, and they actually, you'd step out in the hallway. The panel would decide on your technology and your company at that very moment, and they invite you back in and say, hey, congratulations. Let's go over here, sign the contract in another room. They ran a credit card. You go try to get a signal on your phone. You found out you've actually got money in your checking account. So that's the purpose of the pitch days. You get a chance to show and tell what you've got. And it's really a lot of fun. All the feedback we got from the Smalls and the Air Force folks and the major defense contractors, we invited some of them there too, because remember, they're customers as well, not just the Air Force. They were all highly enthusiastic about this, and we're continuing to do that. And there's a whole list of topics that are coming and technologies that they're looking for. So at the end, when I give you the link, you can go there and you can find out more about it. And if it's something you think the swim lane that you're in, that technology fits, by all means, have at it. Let's have the conversations. Next chart, please. Here's the United States, with the exception of Alaska, North Dakota, and I think that's Iowa. We actually, the rest of the country participated, and they all, and we judged, put together this list by how much money they received. Certainly, a lot of the states that you come from, that you're calling in from now, the SBIR program is a lot bigger than you imagined, and we'd certainly love to have you be a part of what we're doing. By the way, what we're looking for the partners. We're looking for that partnership. We're looking for your ability to bring a new idea. And oftentimes, regardless of what you think you heard, the Air Force doesn't have all the answers. Boeing and Lockheed and Raytheon and all those guys, they don't have all the answers. So this is really where your value goes way up, because you've got a lot of answers to solutions that they're looking for. Bring it on. We really want to have that conversation. Next chart, please. So, and I'm almost at the end of my charts. Now's really a great time. The Air Force has gone from being just strictly a technical bunch of engineers and scientists with monovision to where we're opening it up. This is a great time to talk to us. We understand the business aspects. And the reason that I'm here today is just to let you know that we're looking to have the conversation with you. And it's a great time. Our numbers keep going up. We get more companies. The companies are making more money. And that's really where I think you're headed. But we're also getting more technologies that we can actually field to the warfighter. And listed here is our website. That'll provide information on pitch days, what the Air Force is interested in, information about the SBIR program, and contact points and everything. So by all means, please give us a holler. The Air Force is really a friendly group of folks to work with, and I'm having a ball. This is great talking with all of you, and I think. So any questions? And thank you for all that.
Jim, thank you so much. We appreciate this. This is a very exciting opportunity for so many people out there. We had one question that asked about the slides and where they would be following the presentation, and we will have them posted on the website. And Earl can also send them out via email if you'd like access to them. We sure appreciate Jim Sweeney and his time from the Air Force's SBIR STTR programs. Jim, thanks so much for taking time with us, and we again really appreciate this and look forward to our next time engaging with you. Our best to everyone there in the Air Force office and Air Force side of things, and thanks to all of you who participated with us again today. We look forward to seeing you all next week, and again remind you to mark your calendar for an in-person VETS'21 November 2nd through the 4th in Orlando, Florida. And we'll talk to you all very soon, and thank you very much.
And Earl and Scott, thanks a million for everything.
You betcha. Thanks, Jim.
You bet. Take care.